This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
Introduction. René Descartes is a famous French philosopher whose ideas and considerations are prominent, and they are studied up to now. Some of the ideas are controversial. There are a lot of different theories considered by René Descartes. However, the wax argument is one of the most contentious and discussed issues. Descartes' wax argument. It is essential to consider the way of thinking Descartes applies when trying to understand the nature of the wax argument and its importance. Using wax as the object for reflection and consideration, Descartes has concluded that to judge an issue, one is to reject thinking about its properties at the moment and to rely only on her deduction and mind. Feelings and perceptions of the aspects prevent a person from an objective consideration of the issue. Emotions are also extra in this case. Thus, to create an unbiased opinion about a problem, all the perceptions and feelings are to be removed. Trying to follow the way of thinking Descartes applied, the following process may be considered. Descartes has taken a piece of wax and he has listed its main characteristics. Having considered the shape, texture, size, color, smell, and other features of the wax, Descartes has created a particular point of view about the piece of wax. However, after he melted this piece, another substance was seen. It is essential to understand that this melted piece of wax was the same piece. However, its shape, texture, size, color, and smell changed. This is the main idea of the wax argument René Descartes has presented. To measure an object, wax in this case, Descartes recommends not to shift to perceptions, feelings, and emotions. The deductive method is to be used to consider the issue. Following the way of thinking Descartes applied while concluding the deduction use only while making decisions about the object qualities, the following data is to be considered. Having melted the piece of wax, it has lost all its initial conditions. However, it remains the same wax. Therefore, thinking about wax, people are not to refer to their sensory abilities. Descartes refers to wax as something more extended, such as space. Moreover, a piece of wax may come through many changes a person may not be aware of. However, it remains that piece of wax. Therefore, the wax is perceived through personal understanding. Finally, when people say that they see the wax, they usually judge through understanding what they see. Therefore, the main conclusion Descartes comes to is that when we perceive an object like the piece of wax, there is an active judgment involved in our perception. I do not see the piece of wax, I infer that it is there from appearances provided by my sense. Thus, such consideration is referred to as a wax argument. When people are to consider an object, they are frustrated by the perception of this object, think objectively, and discuss its fundamental characteristics of it. Descartes' wax example explained. There are three primary purposes of the wax argument presented by Descartes. The wax argument serves as an argument for rationalism and, by implication, nativism. It serves as the first sketch of Descartes' reasoning and theory regarding the nature of corporeal and non-corporeal substance, and it serves as an argument that, contrary to common sense, the mind is known better than the body. These purposes help us consider the main metaphysical categories wax argument is applied to: modal properties, numerical identity, and substance things. It should be concluded that each object has at least one feature when considering the properties of the object. People are unable to know about each property an object may have under various conditions. However, basic knowledge about an object helps him/her identify it under diverse influences. The numerical identity of objects refers to the different ways of identification, numerical and qualitative. Finally, the substance things category relates to the properties of an object, which may be a collection of coexisting properties and predicted ones. The wax argument, the God. Descartes uses the wax argumentation in consideration of God as an existing creation. A philosopher applies this theory, trying to explain that it does not matter that we are unable to see God, we understand that God exists. The perception is reduced to a minimum, and only the deduction is to be applied while considering this issue. This trust in things that are not absolutely certain is the central theme of Descartes and his philosophy. When applying to the wax issue, in this case, the philosopher tries to prove that it is possible to trust in God without having any visual support as trying to visualize God, which we apply to our perception, which is not necessary in the case of wax argumentation. This is one of the main characteristic features of the wax argument. It teaches people not to see the object, but to consider it the way one understands it. Descartes' ball of wax, personal. Returning to the discussion of wax as a piece, the following data should be mentioned. A philosopher tries to show us that a personal vision of wax is what is important in comparison with wax as an object which is seen. Personal consideration is the primary purpose of wax argument. People should be able to get the main idea of an issue no matter what conditions the problem is at the moment. Each person applies to experience he/she has in the question of personal understanding of the objects and their qualities. It is essential to see the piece of wax even when it is melted and to be aware of its initial qualities. Therefore, considering the main idea of Descartes' wax argument and its implementation into practice, the following statement should be referred to. I now know that even bodies are not strictly perceived by the senses or the faculty of imagination but by the intellect alone, and that this perception derives not from their being touched or seen but from their being understood. Conclusion. The human mind works so actively that when we see an object, we can consider its main properties no matter under which conditions an object has appeared. The human brain is unique. People can perceive objects as they are and consider them in their initial appearance. People are able to consider the main properties essential for a particular object when treating various objects. The main idea of the wax argument is that people usually use their minds to treat an object and to define its characteristics, and only when they refer to perception try to identify the conditions which have affected it. Did you like this Descartes wax argument and its purpose sample? To get more works like this one, make sure to check out the free database of academic paper examples at ivpanda.com. You will find thousands of samples for all your study needs, without even having to register.